right, folks. Hello again. And today we are going to talk about should you settle or go to trial? The rider's dilemma. Welcome to a new informative segment of Mototalks with Mitch and Mel from the law firm of Proner and Proner. I'm your host, Mel McCuyup. And as often as we can, we will sit down with the personal injury expert himself and rider, Mr. Mitch Proner, a personal injury attorney with over 30 years of experience, here to answer your questions or any interesting topics that you might find useful in the personal injury world. Now, before we go on, folks, remember that if you need to contact us, all consultations are free and confidential. Call us at any time at 1-800-321-1234. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Did you get any riding in this past week?
This is about the last week I can ride, because this next weekend, I think we're getting remnants of a hurricane, and but we'll see where it goes.
There you go. Well, all right. Well, let's get into it. Yeah. So, like, should you settle or go to trial? At the rider's dilemma. Like, Mitch, how do you know when it's better to settle, and when you have to go to trial?
So, typically, it's always better to settle, because with a settlement, you know what you're going to get. With the trial, if anybody tells you they know what a jury is going to do, they're lying to you.
Right.
That's why we have to try cases, because we don't know what the jury's going to do. If we could know beforehand, we wouldn't have to try them. But that being said, sometimes you have to try the case.
Yeah.
Because the other side wants to try the case. They're not offering you a fair settlement. So, first of all, you have to keep in mind that there's a general consensus that nobody likes motorcycles, or that the rider was probably doing something wrong, or that I know how these motorcycles ride. They don't obey traffic rules.
Right.
There's a prejudice. There's definitely a prejudice. Now, typically, it's a challenging case to try. So the insurance carrier might not be offering you what's fair for the case. And you might have to go to trial, because they're basically saying no pay, or they're offering you very little because they think they're going to get out of it. At that point, you might have to try the case. Now, the case could be a case that they think they're going to get out of it because it's the rider's word against the operator of the car's word. And maybe the operator of the car was like a school teacher, and maybe the rider, I've had riders with criminal records, lengthy histories of prison. They're entitled to compensation too.
Right.
They're involved in an accident that's not their fault. Their prison case was before another judge, and potentially before another jury, and supposedly they paid their debt to society. This is a different case. And if they're trying to get their life back on track and they get injured because they were on a motorcycle, well, that doesn't mean they're not entitled to compensation or a good lawyer. But I've, as a matter of fact, the cases that I've tried on behalf of people with criminal records, I don't think I've lost one. Not because they weren't hard cases, and not because I couldn't lose them. It's just I've been fortunate and well prepared. So a lot of times they're going to make you try your case, and then you got to be ready. But sometimes the offer's just low.
Right.
Now, usually they're going to take a shot at you on liability. Liability means they're going to try and prove the biker's at fault. So the first thing I try to do is establish liability as a matter of law. My office has created the law in New York for summary judgments for motorcycles, where a left-turning vehicle was deemed at fault for the incident out of law. And the liability didn't even have to go to trial. I created that law by going through the appellate divisions with my cases. When you do that research now on those cases, they're all my cases for motorcycles. So if we could take the motorcycle accident out of it and just focus on the damages, that's usually a winning strategy. But usually they're going to try and prove the rider's at fault.
Right.
And the rider has the right to be prepared at their deposition to make sure they don't fall in any rabbit holes that might trip them up when they're testifying. And that's usually a strong start and a foundation for the case if it does go to trial. And the second part, they might try and minimize their exposures with damages. They might try and say that the injuries aren't as bad as we say. Or if they were bad, they might say, well, they were bad, but he made a good recovery.
Wow.
Then the last thing is a good lawyer can do focus groups where you could present your case to a group of people before it actually goes to trial. And there you could learn what arguments may be used against you by hearing a jury, how they respond to the evidence in your case, and trying to adjust those weaknesses in your case.
Mm.
And also, sometimes with a focus group, you might find out you really don't want to try this case. For example, I had a client who had a broken leg, bad broken leg. And he was limping around with a cane after the incident. Well, I presented his case to focus groups, and no matter what testimony he gave, anybody looking at him said, this guy's 320 pounds. If he's got problems with his leg, he should lose some weight. I still got him a multi-million-dollar settlement.
Good.
But I knew I didn't want to try that case because no matter how I presented evidence of his leg injuries, the jury was looking at his weight.
Right.
So that's the reality that you have to deal with. So sometimes you have to try the case. Sometimes you can't try the case. With a settlement, you always know what you're going to get. With a trial, you just have to do your best to be prepared.
So essentially, then that does lead to, regardless which direction you go to, is I guess mediation and negotiation. Can you kind of expand on that and like how your skill really help?
Mediation is before a case goes to trial. Oftentimes, you'll have what's called ADR, alternate dispute resolution, where you will go to a judge who's a private individual who's no longer on the bench. You rent them for the day, and he tries to get the two sides to come to terms with the settlement. Now, sometimes mediations are successful, but I've had mediations where we sat there all day and we didn't even get an offer because the defendants, and there were multiple defendants, they couldn't agree amongst themselves who was going to pay more. So before they could come to me with an offer, they had to work out amongst themselves what the split was going to be, and they couldn't agree on that. So mediation isn't necessarily successful. And sometimes you have multiple mediations. And then sometimes, like that case I mentioned with the big guy,
right?
We went to mediation. They came back with like a little bit over $1 million. And then subsequently, the case settled for over $3 million.
Oh, wow.
Didn't have to go to trial. The mediation was not successful. But as it got closer to trial and they knew they were facing an experienced trial attorney, they came up with more money. It doesn't always work like that.
Right.
Sometimes I have to try the cases.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for clearing all that information up and making it and educating us. Well, there you have it, folks. You heard it again from the expert himself, Mr. Mitch Proner. Now, don't forget, if you need our help, give us a call 24/7 at 1-800-321-1234, where consultations are free and confidential. Well, that'll do it for now. And thank you again for taking this time to tune in, whether it's on our podcast, video broadcasts. We really do appreciate you taking this time. Please, if you haven't yet, follow us on all our social media like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Like, share, and please subscribe so you get the latest updates. Now, before we go, Mitch, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I used to. The weather's getting cold now.
Yeah.
And I tend for the winter months to keep my bike on a trickle charger and bring it out in the spring.
Yeah.
But I used to ride year round.
Yeah.
And I can tell you one thing about riding in the winter months, there are often times substances on the asphalt like salt or sand,
Mhm.
and it gets dark a little bit earlier. And it could be dark in the morning during your commute. Be careful out there. They don't
Definitely.
always see you, and stopping distances can change. So just do your best to be aware of what's around you and try and keep a cushion between you and the other vehicles. Some space, extra space.
Yep.
And that's it. Ride free and ride safe.
There you go. I love that. All right. Well, thanks again, Mitch, for yet another informative session with you. And thank you all again for checking us out. And remember, we ride just like you. We'll see you next time. Thank you again, Mitch.
Thanks, Mel. Bye-bye.
We'll see you. Bye.